Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming to the last session before the Demo Palooza. I know this is like the last thing in the way before that, so we'll try and make it exciting and get you out on time. That's the main thing. So thank you for coming to learn about how CONA Services automated their Coca-Cola bottlers' journey to S4. My name is Neil Bornstein. I'm a senior solution architect for SUSE based in Atlanta. With us, we have Uday Reddy, Director of Cloud Engineering for CONA. Francesco Quinterno is the CTO for CONA, and Ralph Klar, Principal Architect with Microsoft. Here's our agenda for today. We'll give a little introduction to CONA Services, talk about their S4 journey, what they learned from it, and then along the way, we'll talk a little bit about the Microsoft SAP deployment automation framework and how SUSE contributed along that journey. So with that, I will hand it over to Francesco.
Thank you. Can you all hear me? Yes. Okay, good. Very quickly, what CONA Services is. So we are an IT services company providing IT services for the 11 biggest bottlers in North America. So we primarily have an SAP platform, Salesforce, Blue Yonder, Snowflake, etc. When the US territories were refranchised in 2013, as part of that refranchising transaction, they got a bunch of software, which is what CONA deploys. So we provide a consistent method of doing business for these logos you see on the screen, which represent 11 separate legal entities. So our owners are our customers. So we have a board of directors, and each one of these entities is represented on the board, and they vote on strategic decisions. And as you can see, some of the numbers, we have indirectly 80,000 people using our systems and 512, for those of you who speak SAP, plants in SAP. So way back, primarily, as I said, SAP ECC is our bread and butter. So we started looking at S4 in earnest around 2021. One of the big drivers for figuring out what we needed to do was we use a module called DSD, which is Direct Store Delivery. These are the big red trucks you may see around the world. They deliver to individual customers, and a sales transaction happens. You have to reconcile inventory, money, etc. So that module, the support for it ends in 2025. So there is an extension on S4 where you can use DSD in something called compatibility mode till 2027. So we needed to get started early so we could do a gradual migration. As you can tell with all these numbers, we hate risk. We need to minimize risk. So we started investigating what to do back in 2021. Some of the maybe terminology you may see as you approach this journey. We stayed away from the greenfield, which was basically a new implementation, new customizations, because we had just finished our last deployment in 2018. So as far as process redesign, there wasn't much needed, and so we chose the brownfield option, which is take ECC, upgrade it, use everything as is, as much as possible, and only those things that were mandatory to change, that were no longer available, that's what we changed. So at the time, that was our ECC DB2 database size, 45 terabytes, which was making all our partners sweat a little, because at the time, like I said, in 2022, they were talking about scale out, which for us wouldn't be viable either. We have many times of the day where we have lots of transactions, and as you know, SAP integrated. So these sales transactions are updating finance tables. So scale out wasn't going to be an option. So we, in earnest as well, started figuring out how to archive, but seriously archive. And we got, thankfully, down to 38 terabytes, and we plateaued. And if I can, anyone I speak to, I say as much time that you can put and convince your business to archive, please do it. I think what we found is many business people think archiving equals deletion, and that's not true. So as long as you educate that the data is still there somewhere, this is a valuable exercise. Other things we learned along the way. All the third parties at the time either needed to be certified or wanted to be paid to be certified. So it became like we were negotiating with everybody one more time, which was very unpleasant. But nonetheless, we came out of it. And SAP themselves don't allow for non-compliant add-ons. So you have to do some cleaning. You may find yourself 10 years, 20 years, if you've been maintaining a system, there's lots of add-ons being added by all the technical people that you need to get rid of. Code remediation. We dealt with an entity called SmartShift. They looked at all our custom code, and you see there, remediated over 46,000 objects, made them S4 compliant. A little bit more about compatibility mode again. So the strategy for us was to minimize the change for this first phase. So we kept everything as is in compatibility mode, including DSD. And so we've bought ourselves some time now. We went live, by the way, 59 days ago, and we are here to live. We are live, so it went well because of our friends at SUSE. Because of our friends at Microsoft, and also because of our friends at SAP. And with that, if you guys want any questions later, feel free. I'll hand over to Uday, who'll start telling you about our little exciting journey.
Sure. Thank you, Francisco. I know this is a busy slide. So we started our journey in 2022. It took almost like 2 years for us to finish our migration. So when we did close to 17 cycles, which includes both DMO, NZDT, and DOC. Right? When we started, our goal was to use DMO and NZDT to begin with. And then last year, we changed our track from NZDT to DOC, which is downtime optimized conversion, during as part of last year's Sapphire, actually. Right? So before this, the plan was to use NZDT. We had a couple of issues with NZDT based on our the transactions in the system and the visibility, right? We could not see much data going out from the system to target. So with DOC, we took a chance, right? That's when we started our DOC. If you see September 2023, that's when we started our DOC, which is downtime optimized. That was pretty new at the time for CONA to begin with. And then we did a couple of non-prod cycles. We failed sometime in November. We tried to do a DOC. We failed in production because with DOC, they have different types of triggers called inline and compile triggers. When you put compile triggers in DB2, our DB2 could not handle the load on the system, actually, because SAP never tested compile triggers with the load similar to CONA before. With all these cycles, SAP released close to 24 SAP notes based on the learnings from CONA till date for DOC and other cycles, actually, right? And then the remaining 3 cycles, we did 3 cycles in production. The rehearsal was in production. With the previous cycles, we never took downtime before migration, whereas with the new DOC approach, we had to take, they call it a mini downtime, which is around like 10 minutes, where you have to take the downtime of restart of application servers to create those triggers. So these are 3 cycles where we had to take downtime in production. We started at night for 15 minutes before doing in production. And as part of these cycles, we also updated HANA. So we updated to HANA a newer version. And also Ralph can speak about this SUSE pack. We were in SP3. /15 SP3, and then based on the recommendations from Microsoft and SUSE, we moved to SP4. And then many changes we made as part of these cycles, right? So, means I have tons of busy slides. I'll just quickly go through those slides, and then I'll take more questions, actually. And this one in the test cycles, we ran multiple test cycles in our non-prod. It's not just on S4. These cycles we ran on our source also on DB2. Because you have to run these cycles to understand the impact of a production. When you run the upgrade on the system, on the source, you have to understand the impact to users. So we had to run many cycles in non-production to make sure that there's no impact to users while you are doing an upgrade. So because the DOC takes close to 3 weeks, In those 3 weeks, we want to make sure when you're upgrading your system and also transferring data from source to target, there is no impact to your existing users. So that's when we had only one failure so far in the upgrade. So when one failure was when we started the initial DOC with compile triggers, we had issues. We had to work with IBM until throughout the Christmas actually, and IBM had to deliver special patches for us. So once after those patches, we did not see any issues in the system actually. Okay. And then this is the actual production migration timeline. So it took close to 3 weeks. We started our migration on March 31st and finished April 21st. So when I say migration start, we start the sum tool on a weekend. And then once you start the sum tool, you can see the different phases here. This is the higher level phases, so this will help many customers. So we reach trigger phase like the workbench lock around like Thursday, and then during the weekend we create triggers. After the week, once you create triggers, there are some critical phases where it put more load on the system. So we also had to increase our CPU on our source. So we had 60 cores, we moved to 80 cores in the source because the CPU was going up to 80% on our DB2. So we had to increase our cores also as part of the upgrade. So the critical phase is that weekend where you see a lot of load on the system. So once the critical phase is complete in the weekend, then during weekdays we started the replication, right? During the replication also we used to see some load. We used to time the replication in such a way that during night time we used to have peak loads. During daytime we used to reduce the number of RT loads to reduce the load on the source system. Right? Okay, and then once the replication is complete, you can see we also did DTV for validations of our data on the source side. So that's the other thing. That's one of the reasons why we had to pick DOC, right? With NZDT, DTV was not available with NZDT. With DOC, SAP provides you a data validation tool where you can validate the data before moving from source to target. Okay, and then you see downtime, and then the function like the overall cutover was pretty smooth, and we didn't see any major issues during the cutover. Okay, and then as Francisco mentioned, we went with brownfield, right? And then the DOC. The main reason we had to choose the DOC was it was less complex, where I can see how the migration is working, right? With NZDT, SAP's proprietary tool, it was not the data was not visible for us, right? They had their own tool where they didn't give access for us. Whereas with DOC, as a customer, we have more access. We can go look at to see what's happening inside the system, how many records I'm moving from source to target, which table was the impact, so I can control more on the source side. Okay. So the technical downtime was close to like 31 hours. We were pushing SAP to move towards 24, but 24 was not possible, and finally we came to 31. Okay, and then as I explained earlier, so we did replication of close to like 10 days, 8 to 9 days of replication. We recorded close to 9 billion records in the system from source to target. And this was the largest system for DOC. They never tried DOC anywhere else. This was our first system where they tried DOC. And then the number of ABAP triggers were close to 132K triggers on SAP tables. Okay, and you can see the number of migration cycles here, DMO, NZDT, and DOC. And you can also see the impact of downtime in case if the downtime was extended more than the weekend, right? This was the impact to our system right now. Okay, and then this is also a busy slide. This shows the different activities we did as part of our downtime. So I can go through phase by phase based on the amount of time we had. I'll go to the next slide, but if someone needs more information, I can explain better. At a higher level, you see the ramp down activities. Then comes the pre-conversion. Right, the ramp down activities are critical here because we want to make sure that you inform business to make sure they reduce the load Friday night, so that you can start around like Friday 10 p.m. and finish by Sunday night. And then you see the you'll see FI conversion, content import, and your downtime table conversion. The transports were critical actually, so we have to optimize the transports, move multiple times in our cycles, right? And then the technical validations, the business validation. As I mentioned, like the DTV is critical for us because we could not get a sign off until DTV. The records between source and target are matching actually. So technical upgrade was complete. After that, we had to work with functional team to make sure the data is matching between source and target through DTV. Right? Okay. And then, as Francisco mentioned, NSC has been really critical for us, and plus archiving. So initially, when we started the project 2 years back, we were discussing whether to go scale out or scale up. Right, 24 terabyte was the largest node which was available during that time. So we were planning scale out also at that time, but we had to work closely with SAP, and then they helped us moving close to 3 terabytes of data to NSC, which reduced the data and also helped us avoiding going to scale out. So that's the reason we had to go to one node scale up option, which is close to 24 terabyte node. Okay, and then we reduced the data to 38 terabyte, right? And then as part of the conversion, during the conversion, since we could not archive, the other thing is while upgrade is running, they won't allow us to archive. So we can archive as much as we can before we start the upgrade. Once you start the upgrade, you cannot archive. So that's the reason you see the source DB increased to 40 terabyte in those 2 to 3 weeks of time. So next one, I'll go to those are slides specific to migration. Do you guys have any questions specific to migration before we talk about the architecture on how we took help from SUSE and Microsoft and the overall architecture? Okay, if none, I'll go to the architecture here. So you see we have deployed 24 terabyte nodes in 2 different regions, one in East US and then West US 2 in 2 different zones. In East US Zone 1 and Zone 2 and Zone 3. In West it's Zone 1 and Zone 2. So you have primary and HA running in East and DR running West US 2. Right? In case of an issue on the primary region, which is East, we'll migrate to US East 2, and there you will have primary and HA. So right now, to save cost, we built the whole environment. To save cost, we have shut down the secondary node on the Zone 2 to save cost, but the replication is happening between primary, HA, and then to DR actually. So from A to B, and then from B to C. Okay.
Maybe one word also for the backup.
Yeah, go ahead.
Usually for those large backup volumes, backup is a very big pain point for customers. How long do you think a backup takes with 24 or let's say 13, 14 terabytes? Usually 5 hours. Any other ideas how long usually those huge database backups take? Exactly. So what we did here in this case from the primary side, we take frequently snapshots, and those data volumes and also the log backup volume get replicated to the DR side, and we take the backups from the DR side. By this we have 0 impact on the primary side, because all the heavy backup load is then taking care on the DR side, and there it doesn't matter how long the backup takes. That's another thing where we really thought about how can we, because the system on the primary side has a very huge load, and if you read and take a backup, you use the same I/O channels as the database server would like to take. And by this, how we did it here, we have literally 0 impact from the backups. And also, last word on the backups, then I come back to you.
Go ahead.
Also for data fraud those days, the backups are then taken into an immutable blob storage. That means for 30 days, we write the data into the immutable blob storage. So even if a bad guy or girl comes and encrypt the primary side, we have 30 days of backups and also log backups on the DR side, where we still can go back in case of something happens with the data on the primary side for 30 days. And that 30 days can also be enlarged, of course, but here we choose for 30 days because it's already enough data. Now, as a storage, we have Azure NetApp Files here, and there we use a tool called BlueXP. BlueXP is a NetApp tool, a framework, not a tool, it's a framework. And by this, simply we have a selection on the snapshots, and only the daily snapshot we back up using BlueXP then to the storage account, but not from ANF snapshots. That is we have simply file backup what we need to take, and that is there we are stick with. And we don't have any let's say normal primary storage here. So actually the whole data is on ANF, Azure NetApp Files.
And we take, it's not a daily backup, we take every 6 hours snapshots. The snapshots from NetApp, right? We take every 6 hours and then we copy them from east to west. So in west, you have a simpler volumes, and from there, we use BlueXP to copy to an immutable storage account to save cost. So our requirement is to keep 30 days of backup outside the primary region. So, yeah, and we keep 3 copies locally in case if you want to restore immediately, you can restore using those 3 local copies. And then we also take weekly once file system backup actually, not just NetApp, just to prove that because for the testing purpose, right? So SAP provides the commands for us to validate the backups.
Yeah, maybe the one word.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's also a tool, HTTP PassDiag. I don't know, with SAP HANA, I guess everyone is familiar with, kind of, assume at least. Yeah, so there's a tool, HTTP PassDiag. But since we have a partitioned database here on the primary side, HTTP PassDiag is not yet capable of checking partitioned data files. So it was by surprise. And SAP promised me, because with Microsoft, I have a weekly call with them, and they were a little bit surprised, the development team from HANA, which we are talking to, and that is not working. But they promised me in the next 4 weeks this tool is there, but that weekly backups only to make sure that we have data consistency across the board.
Okay. So we have other non-SAP applications also here. So we are using ASR for replication. So in case of any issues, so that's the numbers you see, how long it takes to replicate, like 20 minutes to move the app servers from east to west. Same thing applies to HANA, right? How long time it takes for the replication to stop. Bolt-ons 30 minutes, and the DNS changes. I'll show I have more details in the next slides. So this is the second level architecture diagram to show the different SAP components what we have in the system, right, for HANA, right, and how we are replicating from source to target, right. So this is like a second level. I have one more diagram showing every details of like how we have built the whole system. Okay.
And this is why we have an automation framework.
Yeah. So next, so this is now we'll come to this one actually, right. So what are the resources what you see in these 2 regions? So we have close to 450 resources we have built using the automation. So everything what we have built for our current production is completely automated actually. So the team today, we use Terraform and SDF framework to build all the resources in both the regions, right? Everything is completely automated. We have not done any manual stuff here, right? From overall build point, as this definitely helped us not just production, all the 17 cycles what you see in the previous slide, for all these cycles we used automation to build every time, because every time you complete a cycle they give us a couple of hours to spin up for the next cycle. There's not much time, so we had to use automation to spin up all the systems within that limited amount of time actually. So, okay, as I mentioned, like there are some things which the team is doing post installation, right? The Unix team is doing some steps, and the Windows, the other teams doing some steps. Eventually, the plan is to integrate everything, right, as part of this SDF framework. Okay, and we also closely work with SUSE and Microsoft to also add our custom scripts as part of that framework. Okay.
Yeah. So
Ralph?
SDF. So I know everyone likes acronyms, but SDF means SAP Deployment Automation Framework. So to make this short, we called it SDF. And SDF, very important, is an open source project. So everyone of you would like to help us and help the team, help other customers to develop this is welcome. SDF itself was created together with SUSE. So we have a very close development partnership here, of course, and you need to see this as a real enterprise deployment framework. So you have a design, so kind of a design portal on the top. Yeah, from there you design also your landscape, so non-production, production. You design all your clusters, whatever you need to do. So also a pacemaker get automatically created and designed in SDF, and from there you do the rollout then to your landscape. As mentioned, fully open source, and we try to really automate everything. So from the network ground and creating the network, the VMs, as said, as far as we can go, we try to go. with the help also from our customers. So at the moment when the customers creating notes or tickets regarding to SDAF, we really change this, develop this further, and again put it on Git that everyone can participate from those changes. So this is really a huge open source project meanwhile. Yeah, it's not only there for HANA, so we also can use, of course, Windows operating system and all the common databases within SAP. Yeah, I said Microsoft maintained, but open source as wish that everyone can participate in this stuff. Yeah, by this, any questions for this? And we have also a very expert in the end, so if, very detailed questions for stuff. We actually had a bet yesterday, and maybe one word. Because of the late session, we betted that less than 9 people were in the room. And I am unbelievably surprised that I lost that bet. So, and I owe you a large beer.
So on the last slide, it said see session number 1, 2, 3, 4. We didn't put in the right session number anyway. You've already missed it. So there was a session all about SDF earlier this week. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Was it 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah.
Really, literally. Okay.
It was yeah.
Yep.
It was from Robert from Microsoft.
Okay, so I'm wrong about that. But I wanted to talk a little bit about SUSE's partnership with CONA. Obviously, on the engineering side, long period working with, along with Microsoft on the SDAF. But in terms of our work at the customer side directly, about 1.5 years ago, CONA invited us to participate in their weekly projects, twice a week project meetings, where the field team, mostly me, but also our customer success manager and a few field experts on SAP would join and just validate the plans as they were going along. At one point, about 6 months ago, it came to the point where we jointly made the decision that it would be appropriate to have premium support engaged because it was becoming more and more critical to be able to respond very quickly to any issues, provide that break-fix support as well as standby hours during those go-live weekends. So we engaged premium gold support, again, for that period through today, and still providing that level of support. In addition to the premium support, we have offerings around health checks for SAP. So we engage that through the Premium Technical Advisory Services, which is a bucket of hours that you can purchase that allows you to engage with a consultant, with an expert on a short time frame without a statement of work. So we were able to do about 40 hours worth of health check activities. And you see that here on the bottom, what those mean: deployment review, design review. As a result of the health check, it's important to note that there were minimal findings. So that means SDAF did its job perfectly. It provided an environment that was just correct. It was right. So we don't view this as a waste of time to do this health check because, you want to be sure. As I said, there were minimal findings, but there were a few findings. So that was, awesome. Yeah, any questions about those parts of the project? Okay, well then I guess I hand it back over.
Thanks, Neil. To Neil's point, right, so with SDAF, it was like, I would say minimal or 0 findings from health check, which we actually implemented for our production. So that's one good thing about SDAF and then the health check. So, and the next thing I want to talk about the SAP Llama. We also implemented SAP Llama as part of this project. We have been using Llama for years for refresh, stop and start. So for S4, we wanted to see how we can use not just for stop and start to also orchestrate the failovers actually from primary to HA or primary to DR. So it's still in progress. We automated, yeah, go ahead. Sorry. So we automated close to more than like 90%, right? We still have, I'll quickly show you the different steps we automated using Llama, right? Okay. So you can see, I know this is a busy slide. You can see there like total of like 21 steps here. So this one, it shows how we the different steps involved in doing a failover from east to west. Actually, right? We, as you see, it also includes the total duration. We execute through Llama. There are some steps we are still working with SAP team and also Azure team, such as like for example ASR, right? So we are working with Microsoft and SAP team to do a custom script to call an API to do ASR, and then DNS changes. That's where we are doing manually. We are working closely with our network team and the Windows team to see how we can make the DNS changes in our system. But other than that, most of the things today, like everything is not completely like by clicking a button it won't do all the 21 steps, but team has all these steps documented in Llama, right? I don't have to depend on a resource. It means anybody can go and click these steps and it will execute all these steps in parallel. Okay, so this is specific to HA failover and the DR failover through Llama. Okay. And this is the last slide for the project key learnings. This is still a busy slide, right? As Francisco mentioned earlier, right? We had pretty good partners. So we had SUSE, Microsoft, SAP, and NetApp plus Capgemini. We use AppDynamics for our monitoring. This was really helpful for us to compare pre and post. We could capture the metrics. Like most of the times, business will say after the go live it is slow. The only way for us to disprove them is to collect the metrics previously. So we installed AppDynamics in our ECC. We collected all the metrics pre and post go live. We could compare how long it took, the transactions. We used Smartsheet for core remediation, RevTrack, and for transports, and PCC connector for archiving. And then, as we said earlier, the production cycles plus clone. We did many cycles in our production plus clone, right? And also the de-risking the strategy to move some of the tasks post go live. For example, like Fiori activation took longer during the migration, so we had to remove the Fiori activation from our actual business downtime and then do it after the business go live because Fiori was used only by our finance team. That was a requirement. So we had to do it after the go live. Okay, and we did many optimizations throughout our cycles, right? We ran multiple cycles in our source, and also S4. We had testing team that ran continuously, putting a lot of load on the system, which helped not just our functional team, also work with Microsoft, because Microsoft has never seen this many transactions in the system. We had to work with them, and their engineers joined the call, and they gave tons of recommendations for a 24 terabyte node. So that's one of the reasons I can proudly say that it's not just the going live. So after the go live also, it's been go live for like more than 2 months. We have seen 0 issues in the system, right? Nobody has complained about any performance after the go live. Okay, so that's the optimization has definitely helped us a lot, right? And the architecture, right? We had many architecture sessions. We had pretty good resources from SAP and Microsoft and SUSE. They definitely helped us a lot. And testing, we are testing internally from both the bottler users and also the CONA users. And automation definitely helped us. And then we had like maybe Francisco can talk about the leadership alignments.
Yeah, I mean, I cannot emphasize that enough, that all our partners. So last year at this conference, we met with, at the time, the CTO of SUSE to get his commitment for the project. They knew how big it was for us. And we say the Coke system, so we were the first to do what we did, and other bottlers will probably follow suit. So it's, let's say, all the vendors want to prove that they can do it. So I hate to say it, but if we can do it, if it can be done for the CONA system, the likelihood is there's going to be very few systems that are more complex and bigger right now. So having those folks, stakeholders involved tightly with us was critical. One thing I noticed, maybe DTV, by the way, means data transition validation. It's a tool SAP provides for you to, by a process, you can validate the data, general account balances, inventory balances, values, etc. And I learned through this conversion for those of you who speak SAP, that FI and MM can get screwed up, and the tool figured it out. So that was another invaluable lesson, that had we not used this tool and had done NZDT, perhaps we would have gone on go live weekend and had a problem that inventory wouldn't have been tied to finances.
So my question is, you guys did a good job, right? So congratulations for that. And now you are done with the live. So do you see any other point now using SDAV besides some kind of testing systems? Or is it now fully going to be Llama only for all of those day 2 operations?
Now, Llama
No, I
and
think the
stuff are two totally different things.
Yes, I'm talking about day 2 because you are live now, right? So
Yeah.
there's no place for day 1 anymore.
That is let's say, the next step of ideas. What we have to integrate this also to development, to monitoring tools. Yeah, and that is definitely upcoming.
Yeah, but if you talk about something like live patching or critical vulnerabilities, is
That
it
is-
SDAV or is it Llama?
That is that is not SDAV at the moment. It's more, let's say, yeah, but Llama doesn't also help you with live patching, right?
That's what I'm
Yeah.
asking.
Yeah,
Because
no,
you're
no,
showing a lot
this-
of plans in Llama.
So that would be SUSE Manager coming in.
SUSE Manager,
Okay,
exactly.
okay,
For the
that's
live
why I'm
patches.
SUSE
asking.
Manager.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is SUSE Manager.
So, and from a
What did he pay you? What did he pay? What did he pay you?
yeah. So and for STAF, right, just to make sure, we also plan to use STAF not just like one-time build. The plan to use, if you want to spin up new app servers, the plan is to use STAF and spin up more app servers, because we don't want to, like, we already have that script ready. Today, if you look at our cloud team, right, if you look at like 4 or 5 years back, they were doing like a lot of manual stuff. So today, any build we do in Azure today, everything is completely automated. It's not just SAP. You look at any resources in Azure, it's completely automated through Azure DevOps and through Terraform. So the team has adopted to SAP SDAF also now. So in case if they want to spin up an app server, so we use SDAF, right, to add additional app servers.
Especially that's important because you would like that every system looks like the other one.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to have any deviations in your system landscape, so therefore this is pretty
Yeah.
important. At least we think. Together. No, we didn't lock it. No,
So what we do normally is once the resources are deployed, we lock the resource group, so that way people cannot go and manually do any changes in the resource group. So we have enabled PIM. So in case someone needs to make a change, they have to go and enable the PIM and put a request on why they need to make a change, and then go make the request. But the point is, like, nobody's going to go and do any manual change in the Azure portal unless it's needed. Yeah. Yeah.
exactly.
So yeah. Yeah.
But
So
otherwise, it goes back with Terraform and Ansible, which is the basis also of SDAF. I haven't mentioned this, but then everything must be. The rule number 1 at CONA is everything must be automated. So there's no clicky bunty in the portal, only for visualization. That is pretty nice sometimes to see that we can, if we look for something, that we have a visualization with the portal, but there are no configuration act doing in the portal. It must be, rule number 1 is everything must be automated.
yeah. Same thing applies to NetApps snapshots also. We have automated the NetApps through Logic App, where the Logic App will go and take the snapshots, NetApp snapshots, and it can even send an email, validate and send an email, and it even sends a message in Teams, to your point, right?
This is awesome, by the
We
way.
integrate, yeah. So.
And then the other aspect is putting in Trento, which we haven't done yet, right? So that will allow us to monitor some configuration drifts, because it'll alert when something's not right.
Just a curiosity question, how long does it take to deploy S/4HANA system with the deployment tool? Do
Uday?
you have any estimation of numbers?
So I'll be honest, right? It
Also depends on what components you're
so
using.
let me. It took for us to even learn STAF. It took close to more than 6 to 8 months for our team to learn, because this was new for us, new for cloud team. The cloud team did not have background in SAP, so our basis team were doing a lot of stuff. So the basis team had to cross train. They both had to work as one team to deliver this product. It took some time for us. Right? It took close to 8 months to begin with. We started this journey literally more than 3 years back. With STAF, it took 8 months for us to learn. So after 8 months, now every time we build it, we build pretty fast actually. So, but it takes time. for team to adapt and learn. So now we can do it in hours, right? As long as you have all your requirement sets, for example, like IPs, right? So we have to work with network team to get all the IPs first. If you have all these things ready, it's much easier actually, right?
But Uwe, we didn't leave you alone, right? During this process,
No,
the
no.
learning curve. So there's
No, Microsoft definitely helped us, but they might not have seen a similar environment or similar structure in other places. Right?
I think if you have like the landing zones and all already,
Yeah.
usually
Yeah.
it's like 2 hours.
2 hours, yeah.
All right.
So in our case, I would say 4 to 5 hours based on number of app servers and the size of the DB. Plus, the important thing is the NetApp, because we have to manually pin the NetApp volumes, because we have like 4 volumes. To get the required performance, we have to make sure that they are pinned to different IPs. So.
I just have one question which I didn't see on this.
Yeah.
So one thing that I didn't see on the slide is like, how does your DevOps process looks like? Because you're using a lot of automation. So what tools you're using? Is it on GitHub, GitLab, or
No,
is
we
it
use Azure DevOps
Azure
from
DevOps.
the Azure side,
Okay.
but from the SAP we use RevTrack to move the transports. Right, but if you look at the actual cutover, the plan was not to use during the downtime. During the downtime, the plan was to use because I don't want to depend on a tool during the actual cutover, so we had to do it manually as part of the cutover. Post cutover transports we used RevTrack actually, but actual cutover during the cutover time, right, during the technical before business validation, everything was done through manually, right?
And do you have any hypercare environment currently running? Because it's just been 58 days, right?
No.
So you were like pretty sure that.
No, we are
this
pretty
is
sure.
ready.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because as I mentioned, right, so we one thing, our goal was to make sure that it's not just the migration. Post migration, the plan was not to have any issues in the system. That was our goal. Right? So,
my question is, I think it was kind of answered by this gentleman, but currently we also are in the process of transitioning from Oracle to S/4HANA. The difference being is that we are still on-prem. So we have 2 facilities connected by dark fiber running vCenter. And I think what I was about to ask is, are any of the development tools, would they carry over for this type of process and maybe the road track in the situation? But I thought maybe you could.
So I can explain actually. I think it's, probably we didn't make it clear earlier. So the migration was from on-premise to Azure. So this migration was from on-premise to Azure. So as part of the migration, we migrated only ECC to S4. So RevTrack is still on-premise, CRM is still on-premise, right? The only system we migrated was S4 and other bolt-ons which are critical for S4, such as Vertex, Leo, and we also use HVR for replicating data from S4 to Snowflake.
Gotcha. Thank you.
But the other system, so that was the only change we made during the migration was increasing the pipe from on-premise to Azure. It was a 2 gig circuit. We went up to 10 gig actually, because that replication you saw, so that's the other point, which is critical point, that when you see the replication for those 8 days, right? So the express stored bandwidth can go up to 6 GB to 7 GB during the replication actually. That's very important during that time, during that weekend, because if you go during the weekdays, you will see more load on the system and business might complain, right? So.
One thing, the learnings, the capacity you have in these other things is important. You may not know what you need, so having the flexibility to increase the network between our data center and Azure through an entity called Megaport was phenomenal. It happened like this. We didn't have to put in an AT&T request, or it was going to take 6 weeks. Then on the SUM tool itself, you guys also increased the number of cores because we found, like during the night when there's low business activity, we could have been pushing a lot more across. So that was a science that we learned in the first cycle. So during the day, you were just keeping the bare minimum, and at night you were yanking it up, so that when you hit 10 o'clock, the Friday of go live, you had very little stuff to replicate across. Yeah. So the rehearsals are critical.
Yeah. And the NSC, right? You have to make sure that you enable NSC before the go live, right? If you do, the thing is, once you if you want to enable NSC after the go live, if you don't do the right partitions, the range partitions, you'll have more issues where you have to copy the whole table and then do the partition, then copy back again. So yeah.
So the last thing is just, as a result of this, we have published a success story. You saw it on the big screen this morning. You can go to this URL, go look at it. You've already learned a lot more detail, frankly, from being in this session, but there's the hard copy that you can go download and share. And with that, I think we are done. So good time.